Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz, and loaded show tonight. Didn't talk to you all week, so you know that means that I'm going to be really loaded up. And as soon as this story broke about Cody Campbell being on this presidential committee that is going to discuss what to do about college sports, I have been very excited to talk about this because it has honestly put a bit of pep in my step. Now, you can call me naive. You can call me pie in the sky, and that is fine. I would certainly understand why you would say that, and we're going to discuss how much likelihood there is that this actually means something of significance to not only the sport and college sports in general, but the Big 12 and ACC particular with this audience here who I am watching the show. I want to tackle this head on, man, because I think, look, if we're being honest, okay, I got to be a little bit careful here, but if we're being honest, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like this that's a little off the beaten path that seems to be getting done with the current regime in power right now. This could happen, guys. Like, something could happen here, and Cody Campbell could be a huge conduit to making that happen. He certainly is the yin to the Nick Saban yang. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down the road. I will explain that all to you here in just a moment. I think this is a show that has a topic later on that has the potential to get everybody to really disagree, be pretty heated. That is, what is the best job in the Big 12 right now? Not what is the best program, which we have done, not who is the best coach, but what is the best job in the current college sports landscape? Because that is something that honestly could change basically year after year, the way college sports are going right now with how much things do change. Plus, I want to squeeze in a little bit of news here. I guess this maybe isn't that big of a deal to some people because we all have known that the college football playoff is going to expand in some form or fashion, but it now looks like it's going to be 16 instead of 14. Okay, Big Ten and SEC, not surprisingly, are chasing more money. They're chasing more spots. So they're going to try and ram home a 16-team playoff instead of a 14-team playoff. And with that, I will say I think the Big 12 needs to pretty quickly sign on the dotted line on that thing, on that proposal. As much as it is a representation of Big Ten and SEC greed, once again, I think the Big 10 or the Big 12 and ACC rather should be sprinting to sign that. Okay, appreciate everybody who is here. As you file in, please do like the video. That is a totally free way to support the channel. Just one click, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That is also great. Seen a nice little uptick lately, but many of you, most of you, in fact, who watch these live streams do not subscribe to the channel. It's very easy. Just click subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Great way to support what I'm doing. You can also support me in a couple of other ways. One, obviously light up the chat. Join David in there. Appreciate you, David, for being here. But if you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. That will make sure that you get on the show tonight and as a way to support the work that I'm doing here on this channel. Appreciate all of you guys who do that. Couldn't do it without you. Same for those of you who support on Venmo, which is another way, particularly for those of you who don't catch the show live. It is John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you would like to support the channel that way, leave me a question or comment there, and I will kick off the next show with it. So that's always an option that you have to get in touch. And the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter is another way. Totally free. That one's not going to cost you a dime. You'll get the best Big 12 news to your inbox twice a week. I'll break down the big stories like this one. Perfect example here. We get a presidential commission on college sports. I tell you how it's going to affect the Big 12. Straight to your inbox twice a week. We're getting close to 4,000 people. Getting close to 4,000 subscribers on that Big 12 newsletter. Open for Business, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video. Very easy to get involved there. All right, I think that is all the housekeeping that I have. So this one's obviously a little bit loaded. I'm sure you can tell by the title of the video, but politicians are going to take a stab at fixing college athletics, which I know is a statement that may give you a headache. Not something that you'd be particularly thrilled to hear about happening. I think, though, the Big 12 is going to be at the forefront of it all, which is crazy, right? But will it actually give the Big 12 what the league needs to be competitive long term? That, I think, is a very complicated answer here. Okay, so there's a lot to explain. Just to go back to what this is all coming from, we start with the news breaking earlier this week that President Trump is going to put together a presidential commission on college athletics. So according to Ross Dellinger, who wrote about this for Yahoo Sports, he said the commission is expected to deeply examine the unwieldy landscape of college sports, including the frequency of player movement in the transfer portal, the unregulated booster compensation paid to athletes, the debate of college athlete employment, preserving the Olympic sports structure, the application of Title IX to school revenue share payments, and even conference membership makeup and conference TV contracts. Those with knowledge of the commission told Yahoo Sports. That at the end there, I think, is the biggest key here, because if you want what is ultimately truly best for the Big 12, what you want is for this Project Rudy plan that Cody Campbell really supports to play out. That is definitely what you want. And that would involve manipulating the TV deal to be all of college football instead of just individual conferences. And then you could reorganize based on, geographic conferences that make sense. Okay. So the fact that that is in the reporting from Ross Dellinger, that is something that's on the table to be discussed, it won't surprise you to learn that once I go through here in just a second and show you what Cody Campbell has written about Texas Tech mega booster, who is going to be one of the co-chairs on this committee. Now, before that, the first initial reports were about Nick Saban. Okay, so Saban, obviously Alabama legend, arguably the best coach of all time. Saban was speaking Saban spoke to Donald Trump when he was there at Alabama for the commencement speech recently. So, of course, Saban is going to be one of the co-chairs of this committee, which, fine. I get it. But I also get, if you're a Big 12 fan, and some of you tweeted this at me, like how that would raise some alarm bells, because Nick Saban went on the Pat McAfee show not that long ago. This was more attached to the college football playoff. And he said 40 teams is where we need to cut this thing off at. We need a 40-team division, basically, and let them do their own thing, operate that way, and that would be the best thing for college football. That should send alarm bells to literally every single campus in the Big 12. No, you might think your school would have a shot. Let me break down the math for you on 40, okay? There are 18 teams in the Big 10. There are 16 in the SEC. That is 34. Notre Dame makes 35. North Carolina is the hottest prize on the board after that. That's 36. Josh Pate, I just saw, had Clemson ranked number 1 in the country right now in his post-spring top 25. Like, Clemson's 37. Florida State, they're going to be included somewhere. That's 38. I assume that Miami's getting included. That's 39. 39 teams. That's 39 of 40, ladies and gentlemen. So if you think that your team and your Big 12 fan base is making the cut, boy, you're going to be battling it out for one spot, it would sure appear, in Nick Saban's world. But to save us all, here comes Cody Campbell. Okay, you've heard me on this channel, even if you are not really aware of him. You've heard me on this channel talk about him a lot lately. Texas Tech mega booster. He's a multi-billionaire. He sold one of his companies for like $4 billion recently. And he was already a billionaire with a B before that, I do believe. So he's got tons of money. He's the guy bankrolling this number 1 portal class that Tech has put together. And he's now going to be one of the co-chairs on this committee along with Nick Saban. I mean, let that sink in. Like, before I get into the details of what this all means for the Big 12, you got Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, from the SEC, from Alabama. He's one of the guys. The other guy is Cody Campbell to head this thing up. That's huge to have that level of representation. Now, the rest of the committee, it's going to be made up of a lot of other figureheads, similar sorts of backgrounds that you're going to see there. And I'm sure all conferences will be represented. And I get all that. But we're talking about co-chairs here. And Cody Campbell has been pretty outspoken about what he thinks is best for college football. And not surprisingly, one, it is something that I think would be best for literally everybody when we're talking about the entire college sports model. And I think it would be in the best long-term interest of the Big 10 and the SEC, but it won't be in their best short-term interest. And it is something that you would expect somebody from Big 12 country to push here. Okay. Now, I also got some pushback from at least one good friend of mine who saw it initially and was like, wait, hold on. I'm a little worried here because Cody Campbell he's got to be loving this free-for-all world that we're in right now, because Texas Tech can just go buy the number one portal class in the country, and he can use his money against anybody in the country. Like, he's going to win that battle basically every single time. Why would he want to change anything from where it's at right now? Well, beyond the fact that even though he has a ton of money, I don't know that he wants to, in perpetuity, have to fund an escalating arms race where right now the cost of Texas Tech's football roster is already $40 million. I don't think he's going to want to continue doing that and watch that price go up and up and up every single year. But beyond just that, if you look at what he's written, like he's got a paper trail here. Lots of articles that he has written, most of them in the Federalist. But you can go look it up. If you get the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, by the way, you've already seen the cliff notes here of everything he has written, and you can see the actual stuff if you want to read the whole long form thing. ofbnews.com to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Click the link in the description of the video. But I think he's very much on board for what I think is the best plan long term for the sport, and would certainly be best case for the Big 12 and ACC, and that is Project Rudy. Another thing that we have talked about on here before. It is one of the Super League proposals. It would take in some private equity money to jumpstart it and get it going, but they've got a hell of a proposal. One that says there would be over $1 billion per year extra from what everybody is making right now in the college athletic space to be distributed among everybody. Okay. So here's what Cody Campbell specifically is pitching first. I will do that, and then I will take you more into the details of Project Rudy, but you'll see how much overlap there is here. So what Cody Campbell wants, number one, an antitrust exemption, which is really the key to everything because it's going to let you enforce some of these rules without getting just destroyed in court over and over again. Number two would be no more individual state NIL laws, because right now you've got individual states adjudicating NIL differently, allowing some states different NIL opportunities than others. You remember some states, it was like you could start paying a kid NIL where they were still in high school. It was different states trying to give their schools an advantage. So just get one set of laws that would govern everybody and no more individual stuff. Number three, student athletes are not employees. So he's definitely not going down the road of student athletes are employees. This is, I think, the most interesting part and the key part here, and that is to allow the schools to pool their media rights together, which he wrote about getting college football involved in the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961, which is what allowed the NFL to do that, to pool all of its media rights and then sell it as just the one entity. That's what college football would do under Project Rudy. And then finally, Cody Campbell is really a big proponent on, hey, reorganize the conferences based on geography, kind of the old world order, so that it cuts down on the travel costs and the ridiculous stuff that we're putting student athletes through with having to travel from LA to Piscataway on a Tuesday night to go play volleyball, like that sort of thing. That is all very well documented, what Cody Campbell has written about. I mentioned it's in the Federalist, ofbnews.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. You can go find, if you go to look into the old post there, when you subscribe, you can find that article. You can also find it on Twitter at JLKurtz if you want the direct link to it. So Project Rudy needs that Sports Broadcasting Act piece to work in full, because it pitches, hey, take everybody, pool their rights. But who has everybody, John? Well, in Project Rudy, that's 70 teams instead of 40. So I just gave you the Nick Saban 40 plan. How about you expand that and broaden that to 70? Now we're talking. That is much, much better. You would pool your media rights together. They claim that would net everybody over $1 billion extra per year, which could be divvied up to where each school is making $25 million more per year from what they're making right now. It would have incentive-based media revenue distribution, so it would not be equal. Okay, so big brands could still keep their advantage. Big brands would take more of the pot, and schools that are, in particular, would just be incentive-based. Like, you win, you keep winning, you stay at the top levels of this thing, you're going to make more money. Okay, promotion and relegation are a part of this, which I think sounds great. I think that would be a really fun piece to add to college football, and that's a part of what generates extra TV money, because you would have relegation games at the end of the year that suddenly are much more meaningful than they were before if it's just a couple of last place teams duking it out in late November, right? And then I mentioned the geographically based conferences that make more sense, cut down on travel costs. So a ton of overlap there between those two. And so I started looking into Cody Campbell. I was like, man, this is great. This guy basically views that as the utopia for college sports and where it needs to go. And now he's the co-chair on this thing with Nick Saban. I mean, Cody Campbell, I can't imagine, is going to be in that position of power and let this thing die or let this thing go through at some 40-team cutoff where Nick Saban's just going to cut out the entire Big 12. Now, John, how realistic is all of this? That's great. Mr. Apple Pie in the sky, that sounds awesome. What are the odds that this actually happens? Well, it's very good points. It's fair to be very cynical about it. I understand that because the biggest hurdle here is that you would be asking the Big Ten and the SEC, those schools, to give up power, give up some level of control. Because in the Project Rudy scenario, they still have extra revenue. They're still going to run the sport and have a bunch of the advantages they do right now. But it won't be to the level that they do right now, where they're literally making like twice as much money as the Big 12 and the ACC. And if you're Florida and you've got Florida State in your state, you're taking in 30 or 40 million more than them per year. It's probably not going to be that level of advantage. And so how likely is it that somebody in America in 2025 is going to willingly relinquish power in the name of altruism? That's not very likely. Now, I would also say I am a big proponent of this. I've said it already tonight, and I'll say it over and over again. I still think it's in the best interest of the Big Ten and SEC schools long term, because I think it avoids the scenario where long term you get some atrophy from fans because you're cutting out large swaths of being able to be legitimately competitive at the highest level. I don't think that's something they want to mess with long term with their cash cow that they have right now. But even anybody relinquishing short term power for the benefit of altruism or what's in their best interest long term, not something you're seeing a lot of people doing in America in 2025. So that's a huge hurdle. Okay. But do you have the power to do it? Could Congress, could the president step in and find a way to actually make that happen if that's what the committee is going to recommend? That, I think, is the wild card. And how realistic do I think that is? Dude, I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea. But I think if you try to tell me you think you have any idea how likely it is, I think you're wrong. Nobody has any idea. Nobody has any idea. This regime that is in power right now is not really one for norms or rules. Like, we don't know where this could go or what could happen. And that's a part of the intrigue for me here. Like, let's see where this thing goes. And we've got like this train. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where these tracks lead at all. It's going in through a tunnel into the darkness. I have no clue, but I know who one of the captains is, and he's wearing a Raider Red hat, right? Like he's guns up. He's got a Big 12 logo on his chest. And that, I think, is a very, very good thing. So I'm here for it, and I'm along for the ride right now, man. Let's see what happens here. It could also be totally nothing. Obviously, we have a lot bigger things to be worrying about. It could get totally whitewashed, and we never hear about it again. I don't know. But I do think it gives me more hope than I had before. Okay? It certainly does there. So a piece of this now is, what about the Big Ten and the SEC? Okay, we have the Presidential Commission for College Athletics being formed. Nick Saban, co-chair. Texas Tech multi-billionaire mega booster Cody Campbell, co-chair. The Big Ten and the SEC do stand to lose something out of this, right? I'll start you with which one has more to lose. I think it's very obvious the Big Ten would have more to technically lose here out of all of this. And I got some pushback on this from my good friend, Greg Flugar from Peek Around the Corner, who does a great job. It's an awesome channel. You should go subscribe to it right now if you're a college football fan, for sure. But we know that both the Big Ten and SEC would sacrifice here under this theoretical Project Rudy sort of formula if we're able to get there, if Cody Campbell can impress upon the president and Congress and whoever else his views as to where college sports should be going. I think Josh Pate actually said it really well. I know there's a lot of Josh Pate like skeptics or haters out there in Big 12 country that just view him as like way too far in the tank for the SEC. I don't think that's particularly fair, even though obviously, yes, he is an SEC guy, but he had a great quote about this when he was talking about this. And back to the question I asked earlier, how much hope do you have that some change could actually happen here? Well, a part of the reason I have some hope is because of the way that Josh Pate kind of analyzed it, right? A guy who's pretty well connected and has a very influential voice. So here's what Josh Pate said about it, quote, "If you carry it out to its logical conclusion in the best interest of college athletics overall, instead of just in the best interest of the Big Two, there would be a lot of end results that may not thrill the SEC and Big Ten. So the multi-billion-dollar question will be, do you have the power to pull that off?" That, I think, is how you boil it all down. And I'm going to paraphrase on this here, but earlier in that segment, Josh Pate basically said, yeah, I'm cool with them doing that. Like, that's fine. This is not going to be this utopian Big Ten SEC world anymore where they have a complete vice grip on everything, literally everything. But that's okay because I think it will be better for the sport overall. All right. So I would encourage you to go listen to that whole segment as well. But look, I think the pushback that I really was getting from Greg in a lot of ways is about, well, hey, what happens to the Big Ten and all this if we're going to reorganize into geographically based leagues? Okay. The SEC and the Big Ten both will really kind of cease to exist here. I don't know if you would still keep names for the conferences here. I remember looking at the Project Rudy proposal at one point. I don't know that they had the same names for some of these conferences, but they were broken up more by like 10-ish team geographical conferences. You could do like 7 of those, obviously, if you have 70 teams overall that are here. So there's a lot of people from the SEC and Big Ten that are like, why are we breaking up the conference? We're losing all this history and tradition and whatever. Whereas I think, Big 12, ACC, Group of 5, everyone else is like, well, to hell with that. So you guys have busted up all our tradition. Ask the Pac-12 about tradition. Like, who cares if your tradition's going away? But that's one of those things that wouldn't make the Big Ten or the SEC very happy, right? Why do they need to do that? Well, I would again say it is for their greater good in the long term, but I can understand if I were them, I probably wouldn't feel great about it right now. And I think that's some of it. But even beyond that, if you're the Big Ten, like you're losing more by having to divide up into geographic conferences because your league right now is coast to coast. Like, that's been the whole advantage of what the Big Ten has done. Like, they've got footholds all over the place, man, all over the entire country. And you're definitely going to have some recreation, basically, of the Pac-12 under Project Rudy, where, hey, there goes the entire West Coast wing of the Big Ten. No more. And so I think Greg was trying to say, now you can go look on Twitter at JL Kurtz, see the back and forth. And I don't want to speak totally for him, but I understand. Look, if I were a Big Ten fan, I'm sure I would probably feel very much the same way. Like, yeah, man, why do I need to relinquish this power? This system's pretty great for us right now. I wouldn't really, it'd be tough to be concerned about the real long term. Why am I going to be concerned about eating my vegetables when I got a plate full of cheeseburgers and candy right here? This tastes awesome. I don't need to move on to anything else. So I get it, but I don't think that it's some like real conspiracy against the Big Ten or anything like that here. I just think it's like that would be collateral damage in order to achieve what to me would be a much more utopian, not just college football view, but college sports enterprise, because the geographic conferences, again, would help a ton with schools not having to spend all this money on travel. It would be better for the student athletes. It makes so much more logical sense. It brings back regional rivalries much more easily. There's so much about it that really, if you were, because again, this goes back to the argument, if you were just building the sport from scratch right now, you would do it like this. You wouldn't do it like where the Big Ten has Oregon and Rutgers in it. You would not do it that way at all. It makes zero sense. And that's a part of my pushback too, when I hear, well, this Big Ten tradition that would be thwarted. What Big Ten tradition? Again, you're in a conference now that includes Oregon and Rutgers. Like, what tradition do Oregon and Rutgers have playing each other? Okay, that's not the tradition. And if you're keeping like a 10-team conference in like the upper Midwest, most of those teams that have all the deep history together will still be together. You would still have that tradition, in the way this would geographically break down. So I don't know. I'm just not here for like, well, the Big Ten has all this great tradition and history. They've blown a lot of that up. They had a lot of great tradition and history with the Pac-12, and they voluntarily blew that up. So I don't know. Look, coming to the Big 12 for any sort of sympathy on that is the wrong place to go, because the Big 12 has non-voluntarily lost teams on multiple occasions now that have blown up the history of that conference, and not just the Big 12 teams that have played each other since the Big 8 days for 100 years. And that stuff has gone by the wayside too, for the benefit of other conferences. So you're just not going to find much sympathy around here for that. Now, the other thing, and this is something where I was like, okay, fair to bring this point up, is Greg and others being like, well, the Big 12 fans now, like, they don't care about the G5 schools who get screwed in Project Rudy. And it's just the same thing as the SEC and Big 10 who don't care about Big 12 or ACC when they do all their things, or Pac-12, et cetera. And my answer is like, well, yeah. Yes, you're correct. Yes. I mean, look, in an ideal world, I wish we could just turn back the clock and go back to 2000 and use that model that we had there and keep G5 schools to where they're still somewhat. I'm all for that. But I also think 70 teams is better than 40 being included. I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of good. I think 70 teams being included as opposed to 40 teams being included, which is where we appear to be headed right now, if this thing stays on the same track, I think that's still better for everybody, And okay, is it selfish and we're in a dog-eat-dog world? Yes, it is. Who set the tone on that? Because it was not the Big 12. The Big 12 had to learn after years of being picked at and being left as a rotting carcass on the side of the road. The Big 12 had to learn, all right, you got to fight for yourself, man. You got to fight for yourself. And if it means delivering one of the kill shots of the Pac-12, which, don't get it twisted, it was the Big 10 that killed the Pac-12. But for the Big 12 to be there to just, as it's bleeding out on the ground, put the final bullet into the head to make sure it's dead, you got to do it, man. You got to do it, or else you could be the one you've been left on the side of the road before, but you got nursed back to health. There was a good Samaritan there to help out, which I guess was the Longhorn Network, ironically, at one point. Anyway, mixing a lot of metaphors here, but you get the idea, right? The Big 12 is not the one who set the tone on that. The Big 12 is just doing what you have to do in this environment that's been created by TV and that's been created by the Big 10 and the SEC. So I'm just not here for like a lot of shaming the Big 12 for that. I mean, come on. If you're a group of 5 school, if you're a Boise fan, like fine. Yes. Come down on the Big 12. That is totally fair. I understand your criticism and I get it. That's fine. I'm not going to hear much of that from up above. And now again, look, I love Greg. I think Greg is very sharp and he's really connected. I mean, if you're looking for like inside info, I mean, that is definitely type of show to go to. Peek around the corner, college football. Go check it out. No hard feelings at all here. It was a good discussion on all that. And hey, as a Big 12 fan, the fact that I'm seeing somebody in Big 10 country be concerned in that regard about this, I'm not saying that Greg thinks this is the overwhelmingly likely outcome or anything like that, but that he is entertaining it and having to have those discussions. I'm like, hey guys, this is why I'm saying this is a good thing. Like, wake up and pay attention. This is a good thing that the Big 12 is potentially getting not potentially, the Big 12 is getting somebody with an ear to the president in Cody Campbell right now, when changes could be enacted in an environment that I think everybody looks at politically and says, well, who knows where the hell they're actually going to go with decisions about anything like this. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. So, I mean, hang on to your butts, I guess is what I would say. Hang on to your butts. Here, okay, I know I have some super chats. I'm going to get to you guys in just a moment. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to use this just because I think it's a perfect way to cap off this segment with what is being said here from Harold. So Harold says, you mean come up with a system where the small schools continue to steal from the big ones? Okay, well, first of all, steal. There's a lot with this, Harold. If we're going to talk about steal, again, you are underestimating, if you're a big school, how much you need the small schools. You need the schools to be there to beat up on, and you need those schools to be there to have large fan bases that still are passionate and care and will watch the other games between just big brands if you want to make it a sea to shining sea sport that everybody cares about, which will keep the money machine churning for you. It does not work like just complete late capitalism and you cut everything else out and you have all the advantages and nothing else. No, the bottom drops out at some point. So that's just such a short-sighted way to look at it. Okay. It's such a short-sighted way to look at it. And it makes me sad that you would have that attitude about this sport. So I hate that. I really, really hate that attitude. And this is exactly what would help preserve. Okay. It would help preserve a much better ecosystem for everybody. Harold, why? I mean, how much is enough? How much is enough for schools up at the top? Like Big Ten and SEC schools, I mean, it is tilted so heavily in your advantage right now, and you still want to sit there and complain about this? Why? That is just such an unhealthy attitude. College football does not need to be run just like ruthless late capitalism. That's not good for anybody. And that's not what has made this an awesome sport that everybody loves. If you're Alabama, Mississippi State has been a part of the fabric of that conference and rivalries and the Egg Bowl. I mean, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, how much have they been really that relevant at the top of the SEC? It's not all that often, but that's a huge part of the sport and what we love and why there are huge ratings and why so much passion from everybody all the way around. Why the hell there's nobody who truly loves college football that can really honestly have that opinion. If you're getting high and mighty on kind of short-term greed and this feeling of power and I can talk down to all these people on Twitter because I can say how much we make, how much my school makes versus how much your school makes. That's what it is. But all this is coming from an unhealthy place. If you're somebody who truly loves college football and truly loves the sport, you can't have that attitude about it. That attitude about it is not it. That's not why we love college football. So I hate that, Harold. I'm sorry. Okay, Starter 179. What's up, Starter 179? Appreciate you being here. Starter 179, resident tech fan here, says Cody is a thoughtful leader. From reading what he has written, I would agree with that. It's pretty thoughtful. The smartest idea he has proposed is pooling the TV contracts of all conferences. He will have the Big 12's best interest. I agree across the board there. Would highly encourage, again, ofbnews.com to subscribe to the Big 12 Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. You can go find the link directly on my Twitter, at JL Kurtz as well. If you want to see the direct link to the piece that I wrote earlier this week about Cody Campbell. If you want a synopsis of what he has been writing and you want links to stuff he has been writing, you can find it all in there. It is really good. Highly encourage it. I think it will give you more encouragement about where all this could be headed long-term, especially for the Big 12's sake. Rise and Shout. What's up, Rise and Shout? Oh, Rise and Shout says, hey, Utah sucks. John Kurtz is awesome. Agree? Well, I agree that John Kurtz is awesome. I am trying to be more open to Utah fans here lately. I actually, if I could drop in another plug here, I went on Josh Furlong's podcast. He covers Utah for KSL and is a great dude who does a great job. And got to talk to him a lot about Utah's place in the Big 12. And we talked a lot about the dynamics of the infighting between Utah fans and other Big 12 fans upon entering the conference. And I thought it was a great conversation. And I think there's something to be said for Utah got humbled last year. Everybody in some ways can be starting from a different point now than where we were at a couple of years ago. And I very much understand now at this point, when the Big 12 and Utah were fighting a bunch, the Big 12 was this wounded animal that felt like, hey, everyone's left us out to die. We're not about to take you coming in here, calling our conference the truck stop conference and looking down on it. We are a savage rodent that has been hit by a car on the side of the road. We're not going to come in peace, dude. If you start coming at us. And then on the other side, it was Utah looking like, man, we've got a great thing here. We're winning the Pac-12. We're winning a major conference. We're beating USC's ass every single year. We don't want to lose that. That sucks. We don't want to lose that at all. And I completely understand that. And so both sides had reasons to be really dug in. And it's kind of a class warfare where, Big Ten and SEC, they want everybody at the bottom fighting against each other. So it's not looking up and be like, well, wait, why are you guys? Why can't we come after you guys? So that's a long answer there, Rise and Shout. But I appreciate your support, my friend. Okay. Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. What's up, Eddie? Eddie, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support as always. Eddie says, hi, buddy. I really do think we need a conference network on cable, free TV and streaming. ESPN is relegating Big 12 schools to bad time slots and ESPN Plus. Conference needs to get the Big 12 product on TV. Yeah, I mean, I think some people would tell you the conference network model is a little antiquated right now in terms of being able to generate a ton of positive for you. If you're the Big 12, at least, I guess, the Big 10 network, this is something else Greg was talking about, not wanting to lose the Big 10 network. which I think you could probably fold that into whatever conference takes most of the Big Ten teams. That might still be something that could happen there. I don't know that it's like the answer to everything. Look, everybody has some streaming component. I guess I would say this just to assuage some of your fears about games being pushed to ESPN Plus. There are Big Ten games that go on Peacock. Like, it's just kind of a reality of the world right now. Everybody's going to have some games that get put to streaming. Now, if your concern is really just bad time slots in general on ES, the thing you're going to have to deal with is just a lot of these good Big 12 games are going to get pushed to the really late night slots on ESPN, as we saw last year. And that does suck. I don't know that a conference network would really fix that, but it's not that I'm totally against it. I just don't, I would caution you against thinking that that's a total, hey, it'll fix everything here. The Big 12 they needed to do a conference network before the Longhorn network, which of course there were a lot of complications with that, Texas being one of the big ones there. But if they would have been proactive about doing a conference network about the time that the Big Ten network got started, we could be talking about a different situation here for the league. Anyway, appreciate you, Eddie. Always great to see you here. Thank you, my friend. Starter 179. Can you hypothesize how a pooled TV contract would work? I don't see Sankey playing ball, even if the pie is larger for all. Well, so I guess to me, I'm just operating off of what Project Rudy is, which is basically blowing up all the conferences as we currently know them and reorganizing them into like 7-10 team divisions across America. And then you've pooled the rights at that point, and you would, like the NFL, you would use multiple bidders there. So, CBS gets choice one this week, and then ABC gets a game on whatever night, and NBC, and you could have multiple bidders there. That's a part of what drives the price up. If you're talking about, hey, could you do it with still all the current conferences under their same construct? Maybe, and maybe that becomes easier than going full Project Rudy. I guess that would be what you're asking me here is, are we going full Project Rudy, or are we keeping this like all the conferences the same and then pooling TV rights and finding some way to divvy that up? That to me just seems tougher. It seems like the Project Rudy model would be the way to do that the most seamlessly, but I don't know. I don't know how all this would work, that, you get congressional help or presidential help on all this to make it happen. And then you're still talking about waiting until like 2030 till the current TV contracts are up. I don't know. It would be very messy. Understand that I'm not saying I think this is like overwhelmingly likely to happen. Okay. That's maybe a bit of a mess of an answer, starter 179, but that's kind of where my head is at on that. Honestly, a good question for Cody Campbell. Next time Cody Campbell does an interview, starter 179. If you know some way I can get in touch with Cody Campbell, man, I would love to chat with him. So let me know. But that'd be a good question for him. I definitely would. Pacific Northwest U. What's up, Pacific Northwest U? And by sucks, Rise and Soak means that Utah football is a possible title contender next year. Fear the Dampier. Ooh, Pacific Northwest U coming back. Fear the Dampier. That is good. I hadn't seen that yet. That's pretty good. Fear the Dampier. Devin Dampier, man. I am excited to watch him ball this year for sure. It's a good back and forth. Pacific Northwest U, rise and shout. And then we got Michael in here. Michael, see, I love this. Utah BYU fans, we can laugh at each other's comments. Michael, a great Coug, says Pacific Northwest U, LOL. Love that. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Anyway, a lot of good stuff to chew on. And man, we haven't even gotten to the playoff yet, which, okay, I mean, don't look now. I'm sure you're shocked, but we have more power and money grabbing from the Big Ten and the SEC as it relates to the college football playoff. But I will say in this case, the Big 12 and the ACC should be running to sign on the dotted line here. They need to just smile, wave, sign on that dotted line. As much as it sucks, I think you got to do it here. So we knew that more playoff expansion was coming. This is no shock to anybody. But now it looks like the expansion, instead of going to 14, which had been what everybody was talking about, right? Which was the 4 auto bids for the Big 10, 4 for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 G5, and then 1 at large. That was the 4-4, 2-2, 1-1 model. That is what had been out there and what everybody kind of assumed we were moving to. There was controversy about it because it obviously introduced the 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten and SEC, which people rightfully hate. Now we're just blowing past that apparently to 16. According to Ross Dellinger and Pete Thamel, we got multiple reports about this late in the week. And the report is that the SEC and Big Ten are starting to throw their support behind the idea of a 16-team playoff instead of a 14-team playoff, which the whole point of this entire show tonight has been, look, if the Big Ten and the SEC want it right now, probably what they're going to get. So if that's what they're wanting, get ready for it. So you would ask here, John, well, what is the format? How is it different than what the 14-team format was going to be? I mean, the good news is it does not include like 5 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC, because I can understand how you'd look at it and say, hey, there's 2 more teams that are going to be added. Wouldn't those just be auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC? They would not. That's probably what they would wind up being anyway, but they would not at least be the auto bids there. You'd keep the same structure, 4 for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the group of 5, and then you would have 3 at-large selections. Okay. One of those, a lot of years, would probably wind up being Notre Dame. So you really be looking at like 2 extra at-larges up for grabs. And that probably becomes Big Ten or SEC teams that would be losers of the end of the year play-in games. Because the other thing Ross Dellinger mentioned is that this idea, this 16-team playoff that has gained a lot of momentum right now, would really like codify this idea that's been thrown out there of, hey, instead of a conference championship game where motivation gets a little bit weird, like for instance, Oregon this year in the Big Ten championship game, like what was the real motivation there? Instead of that, you ditch that and you would have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 in the Big Ten and SEC playing on that conference championship weekend. Winner goes to the playoff, automatic bid there. Loser would have to just hope that they get an at-large bid. But that's where I think, for instance, if your 3 loses to your 6, they're probably going to get one of those at-large spots. So, again, another net to get more teams into the playoff, which obviously is better for your league, but it also means more money because you're getting paid each round that you have someone advancing into the playoff. So for the SEC and Big Ten, of course, I guess my reaction would be, well, of course, this has picked up steam for them because it's just basically going to guarantee them a 5th team per league into the playoff every single year. More money, more exposure, better for everybody. I think a couple of takeaways here. Look, the 4 auto bids thing, this is happening. The SEC and Big Ten have weathered the storm of public pushback and criticism on what the 4 auto bids mean. Hey, this has turned into an invitational instead of you just earning it. They know all the criticism. They took it the first round this leak. They kind of waited and they sort of came back at it, then pulled back a little bit and then came back, and then it was 14. And now we're coming in with, hey, not just it's 16. We had a space in between where it was, hey, maybe we'll decide who gets how many bids by TV ratings. And then everybody gets outraged at that. And that almost could be just a distraction to where now it's like, oh, by the way, no, we're just going to do 16 and we're going to get our 4 auto bids and it's fine. They have thrown enough out there at everybody to distract them, get them talking, plus just waited long enough where the news cycle has gone away from this that, I don't know, at this point, like, can you waste a bunch of time still now for like the 4th news story that is leaked about this being upset about 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC? It's hard for me even to when, yeah, man, it's dumb. It's ridiculous. It does turn it more into an invitational. It's such a slimy power and money grab, but like whatever, it is what it is. It has been very apparent to me that this is going to happen for a long time. So I'm just not going to lose a lot of sleep over it at this point. And the other part of it is they've kind of just boxed you in, at least myself as a Big 12 representative here is looking at this like they've kind of got me trapped because I would just go sign this if I were the Big 12. Like, look at what happened this year. Yes, I know it was only a 12-team playoff, but ask yourself, if there were 2 more at-large spots out there, would BYU have even been really considered? Like, no, it would have been like Alabama and Ole Miss or Miami and Alabama, or, pick 2 of those 3. that's who would have taken the other 2 spots. It would not have been BYU. So the reason I bring that up is like, hey, if you're going to be given the opportunity to get 2 teams into this thing, you should probably just take it, because I don't know that there's any world. There are going to be very few scenarios on a year in, year out basis where, at least where things sit right now, you're going to be able to get multiple teams in every single year. So it sucks to like be signing off on something that is really like signing off on admitting that you're a second-class citizen here, and everybody saying, well, look, yeah, you're worth half of what the Power 2 conferences are. This is putting it directly in writing. You are signing off on it, but well, first of all, you don't really have a choice. The Big Ten and SEC are going to basically do what they want. If you really would make a stink and say no, they may just take their ball and do their own thing. But also, this is probably a good deal for you. Based on your current situation and where you're at in the world, this is probably a good deal for you, dude. It is. I just think every single year, if you think about maybe if you've started to win some playoff games in a couple of years, and then it's bigger brands that have built themselves up, if like Arizona State and Utah have made multiple playoffs in a couple of years and won a couple of games there, and then they're the ones that are in the at-large discussion, maybe. But as it stands right now, I think we saw last year pretty crystal clear what that's going to look like for the most part for Big 12 schools. So, yeah, and then it sets up, and part of what this does, it sets up better branding opportunities for Big 12 schools out there. Yes, it is emphatically more difficult for you to win a national championship. Gone are the days of TCU just winning one game against Michigan in the playoff, and then bam, you're right there in the national championship game. You're going to have to win a bunch of these games to get to the title game, which is going to feel damn near impossible. But way more access to the playoff, which means a ton of eyeballs, more publicity, and a better brand building opportunity. If you're in the playoff year after year, that will do a lot of good for your personal brand there. So that opportunity is still out there, and you get double that opportunity for your league if you just sign up for this. So, probably got to just do it. Like it or not, you probably have to just do it. So anyway, there's your college football playoff updates. Look for 14 teams. What did I say? 14? Look for 16 teams rather than 14 next year once this thing gets bumped up. Okay, I've got one final topic for you tonight, and I do feel like this one could get contentious. All right, so let's have a little fun here. It's a simple question. What is the best job in Big 12 football right now? Which head coaching job is best? I saw Andy and Ari on 3 doing this across the country, putting together a top 10. And I thought, man, it's another one of those lists you look at and you think, man, if you're going to bring this back to the Big 12, it's a really tough question to answer because there is so much parity and teams are so even in terms of resources and what they have at their disposal. So how would you rank the top 5? I'm going to give you a top 5 jobs in the Big 12. Okay. I think this will create a bit of controversy. I asked you guys on Twitter, and I did find one person who had the same top 3 as I did, at least. So maybe a bit more consistency on this one than the last list I did, which was just what is the best Big 12 football program right now, which I ranked Utah number 1 there. So here's how I broke down the criteria, because that's got to be the first question that you ask if you're ranking best jobs in the Big 12. Well, what is the criteria we are ranking all of these by? Okay, good question. Number 1, NIL support. Got to be there. Total key. Table stakes in today's day and age if you want to win big in college athletics. Tradition, which I think of this more in the 10 to 15 to 20 year tradition. You know, what college kids have been aware of throughout their entire life. But we can certainly extend some of that to a long-term tradition if need be. Location, like proximity to talent, because even if it does take money to get the talent, a lot of places are going to have the money to match you. But if you are closer to more big name talent, you're going to have more access to spend your money on good players. And what about your fan base? Do you have a passionate fan base? Do you have a lot of fan support? Is it a place that is going to give you a great home field advantage, for instance, to be able to win more often? Those are the main considerations that I had here in putting together my top 5 jobs in the Big 12. if you wanted to do like an outside looking in, others receiving votes, speaking of Utah fans, I did not include Utah in the top 5. That's a really tough one for me to know what to do with in terms of what it is as a job, because Kyle Whittingham is a Hall of Fame head coach who has been a complete rock star there and taken that job. He has ascended the job from G5 kind of job to winning Pac-12 championships, but is that just him? I mean, we literally don't know what this job looks like in the Power 5 without Kyle Whittingham. So, like, that's a hard one for me, man. And you're also in the same state as a job, to me, that is a top 5 job, which I think makes it tougher. I have Oklahoma State just on the outside looking in. Very easily could swap Oklahoma State out for 4 or 5 here. I think it's pretty close toward the end. West Virginia, you could certainly make a case for as well. If you were going deeper back with your history, I think that helps West Virginia as opposed to more like certainly like the last 5 years or so have been a little bit more of a struggle. But let's start with number 5. Okay, number 5. Again, pretty slim margin here, but I'm going with Baylor at number 5. Okay. Baylor has had some really high highs in recent history under 3 different coaches. So that's a part of this. Shown that you can be really successful there, whether you're Dave Aranda, Matt Rule, or of course, Art Briles. Multiple coaches playing for and winning Big 12 titles. The location is a big advantage here. You're pretty close to Dallas. This can be a really nice bounce back place for recruits that leave the state of Texas, go somewhere big in the SEC. Doesn't work out. They're not getting the playing time they want. If you have enough NIL money, which I think Baylor at least has adequate NIL money, you can be the perfect landing spot where they're like, well, I'll come back home. I'll play close to home in a good program in the Big 12. Baylor can be that. I mentioned the NIL seems adequate. I know Baylor made a big deal with Aranda and the We Pay Players thing. Is that what they had on the shirts? So maybe a little late to the party there, but it seems like Baylor is doing a pretty good job as far as that is concerned now. You do have smaller fan base. It's not like an overwhelming home field advantage, so it is a very nice stadium. Love McLean. But that would be one of the things holding you back from being higher on the list. I do feel like number 4 will be a bit controversial here. Some people may not have seen this one coming, but I'm going to Arizona State at number 4. It's always been really a sleeping giant kind of job, okay? Massive enrollment. It is huge. 79,000 students at Arizona State, right? You've got a massive upside with that. Now, you got to make them care because there's a lot to do there. It's a huge party school. But if you win and you win consistently, that upside is there because of the alumni base and how many students are there to make that really, really raucous and a big deal and something that feels huge. I think location is a massive advantage here. If you're talking about attracting talent, selling, hey, come play in the warm weather that we have here year round at the number 1 party school in America. Okay, that's a pretty good sell to a high school kid right now, assuming that your money is there. And my evidence for Arizona State at least being adequate in NIL is just that they kept pretty much that entire roster together. Aside of losing Scadaboo to the draft, I mean, they kept that roster pretty much together. They didn't let Dan Lanning come and snatch Sam Levitt, right? So they've got to have some money to be able to do that. I think that is at least a positive. I know the athletic department has had to, be really subsidized heavily by the university, but in terms of boosters, NIL, it seems like things are at least in a decent spot there. That tradition here, obviously, I mean, that's somewhat lacking, and that's why, your pushback to me could be, well, John, sleeping giant means that they haven't really won like that. So is it fair to include them there? I think because of the potential, I do. Okay, number 3. We're now into the top 3. I told you, top 3, I think, is where you've got to break. I think the top 3 here are pretty solidified to me. I'm going Texas Tech at number 3. I saw a lot of you on Twitter put Texas Tech number 1, which obviously the selling point here is NIL. I've already discussed Cody Campbell a whole bunch tonight. He's got multi-billion dollars to spend on NIL. Texas Tech is not being outspent by anybody, and that doesn't just go to players. We're also talking about the incredible facilities that they have now. Like, Texas Tech is taking full advantage of all that money that they have at their disposal there. It's a great time to be loaded for bear with money, and Texas Tech is capitalizing on that at this moment. Texas Tech also has a really passionate fan base that can create an awesome home field environment when you are winning. You're winning consistently. Texas Tech's going to make that a what to play at, right? I forget what I can and can't say on YouTube. Going to make that a real B to play at, if Texas Tech's out there and winning. Location, you are in the state of Texas. Yes, more remote. It's out there. Not as good a location as like a TCU or a Baylor, but you still have some advantage to being in the state of Texas in terms of proximity to talent. And tradition, look, let's be frank, that's lacking. That's lacking. We're talking about going back to Mike Leach for double-digit win seasons. The recent tradition here is lacking, which is what pulls it back, I think, to number 3 for me. We got to see it happen. Texas Tech, kind of like Arizona State, all this potential there, but let's see it actually happen. Number 2, I'm going TCU. Number 2 is TCU. They were actually number 2 on my best Big 12 programs list right now. They're number 2 on the best jobs in the Big 12 list. Okay. This is all about location, right? TCU is in DFW. It's unbelievable proximity to talent. It's why Gary Patterson was always, TCU for a long time has recruited at the highest level of all the Big 12 schools minus Texas and Oklahoma when they were in the league. You are just in the best possible place, basically, in the country to be recruiting football talent. And that goes for when guys roll over to Alabama from the state of Texas. They flame out there after a year. They're not getting, they're backlogged. They're not getting the PT. You are a great landing spot. And we saw TCU execute that a lot in the transfer portal already. They kept their quarterback. If we're talking NIL support, they kept Josh Hoover from going to Tennessee. I think that means you got to have at least a decent amount of cash to keep the roster together and hold it intact there. One of the big selling points here, much like Baylor, lots of success over the past 10 to 15 years, multiple 12-plus win seasons, played for a national championship. Like, they went to one playoff, should have gone to another in 2014. It's just been high level success achieved there. Fan base is small. It's not a great home field advantage. Those are a couple of drawbacks there for TCU there. But man, there's a lot to like. There is a lot to like about what TCU has to offer as a job. I think it would be hard. I think it would be hard to look at that job as a potential coach and say that doesn't have a whole world and wealth of potential, because we've seen it. I still think this is one of the things I had to be objective in my top programs ranking. Like, I still think Sonny Dykes has a lot to prove if he's going to be an elite coach. I don't think he's there at all, even though he's made a national championship game. But he made a national championship game. Like, I'm not thinking he's an elite coach, but he did it at TCU because those are the advantages that are there with that job. I'm going BYU number 1 right now. Okay, I'm going BYU number 1 right now. NIL support is there. I think almost as much as Texas Tech, like in terms of just having the money there and available for them, it's there. They got AJ DeBonsta to come play hoops for them. That was not cheap. That was not cheap at all. Now, the question and the caveat I would have here is, are there some that would be clinging too much to not wanting to be perceived as a school that spends a ton of money? Because we've already seen that cause some issues there. So maybe that could give you a little bit of pause. But with this great NIL support, which I think is clearly top 2 in the conference, you have a massive global fan base here. I mean, this is not just a huge fan base to people that are filling it up in Provo at Lavelle Edwards every single Saturday. You've got a global fan base because of the connection to the LDS Church. Whatever you feel about that, it is an advantage to have that. And it means that you are a bigger brand across the sport because of it. And then the fans that do fill it up, it's a hell of a home field advantage. It is a really difficult place to play because of the time zone. You get a lot of night games. So, man, there's a lot that is built in with like the fan advantage there, I feel like, at BYU. And when you combine that with the money, I think that's a pretty tough force to turn down when you're talking about potential in these jobs. Now, like location, just okay. I mean, it's cool, a spot in the mountains, Utah, like it's okay, but it's certainly not Arizona State. It's certainly not TCU. It's not even like Baylor being as close to Dallas as it is. They do have very good long-term tradition. If you're talking short to medium term, it's okay. Long-term tradition, though, they've got one of the Big 12 natties along with Colorado. So there's some help there. I think 1 through 3 are pretty interchangeable, and then there's a big drop-off. It's hard to parse between the 3 right now, but I would look at it and say like BYU, TCU, Texas Tech, I think are really your top 3 jobs in the conference right now. Let's see. Who did I see here? Wyatt said weird to put Tech at 3. Wyatt, I guess my question, I feel like I was being pretty nice to Tech there. Wyatt, Texas Tech has not had a double-digit win season since I was in college, since Mike Leach was the head coach there. I cannot put a job number 1 in the conference when that is the case. And I know we're in an NIL world right now. We were in an NIL world the last couple of years, and Texas Tech still hasn't made a conference championship game. So I'm sorry, Wyatt. I can't do that, my guy. I got to see it actually happen. But I think they're definitely in the top 3 based on the financial support that they have right now. Okay. Let me have it in the comments. I'm sure I should have said that earlier. Let me have it in the comments on that. Yes, like the video. Thank you, Shorts All Year. Like the video. Please do that. Leave me all the comments that you want. You can find me on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you want to get a question or comment in for the next show. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you are not catching this live and you have something for me, totally free ways to support the channel. Like the video, subscribe. Please do subscribe, everybody who is here. Many of you are not subscribed to the channel. Subscribe. Please, please, please do that. And make sure you get signed up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. I told you earlier, a lot of great stuff. You can dig deeper on Cody Campbell and what he thinks about the state of college athletics and where it should go. ofbnews.com to get signed up there, or click the link in the description of this video. Lots of ways to get in touch and to support the channel. Okay. Appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you. Rick, I appreciate it. Thank you, Rick. Oh, Wyatt popping in with a buzzer beater. Thank you, Wyatt. Oh, why is this not popping up on the screen for me? Oh, and we have Alan. I didn't see Alan either. Okay, we got a couple here. Alan, what's up, Alan? Thank you, Alan. Alan says John Leipold has top Big 12 job. Ooh. Okay, Alan's advocating for Kansas football being the top Big 12 job. New stadium, AD that will give Lance anything he wants. Dollars, alumni, just happy to have some respect and great basketball. He could be elected Pope if we ever beat KSU. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. We may have to wait a little bit for the Pope, but I get it. I appreciate it, Alan. Well, I think the basketball actually works against you when you're talking about best football jobs, because basketball is going to suck up a lot of resources. You got to keep Bill Self happy. That is a legitimate disadvantage, I think, even though obviously it elevates the profile of the school. The other problem is just, Kansas still hasn't shaken the whole reputation of what it's been as a job for the 20 years before Leipold got there. That's working against them. New stadium helps. I do think Travis Goff is a very good athletic director. That's probably something I could have used a little more in depth as a category, is like, what is your AD like? But I don't think it's on the rise. It's getting better. I don't think it would be fair to hold it in like the top 5, 6, 7. Maybe we can talk about like, should it be a top half Big 12 job at this point? Maybe. I think you just got more to prove on that front, Alan. But reasonable minds can disagree, and I appreciate what you laid out there. Your point about the athletic director is very good, because I think Travis Goff is great, and I think they have done a good job stepping up to get Lance most of the resources that he does need. Wyatt, what's up, Wyatt? Appreciate you, Wyatt. Wyatt says BYU has one blue chip for 2025. Their head coach only makes $3 million, second lowest salary in the Big 12, and Utah is not great for recruits. Well, hey, fair pushback. I think you got to have somebody that's going to utilize, and this is where I get back to, like, I was about to say like weaponize. I'm sure that's exactly the way BYU would not want me to talk about the money that they have at their disposal. But I think you would want to have somebody who can appropriately utilize all the financial resources that you do have to throw out there. Is Sataki still only making $3 million? Like, he didn't get a raise after this year? This is probably something I should know more offhand. Somebody can let me know in the comments where I'm off on that. I would think that he would start to get more money than that, but a fair pushback. If you're talking about best job, you want somewhere that's going to be able to compensate you. And you know what? Maybe you could talk me into, by the end of this, TCU should be number one because of that, or I still can't do it with Texas Tech, guys. I still can't do it with Texas Tech yet, but maybe that would flip-flop TCU, BYU, number 1 and 2. Utah is not exactly like a total hotbed of football talent. I get it, but if you're talking about like regionally, you know, BYU, you can probably dip into like more West Coast, right? You have some opportunities there. Yeah, it's compelling enough case there. I would say, I think with the NIL and the brand of what BYU is, they do recruit a little bit differently in football, and football recruiting probably would have to improve for me to feel great about consistently keeping them at number 1 right now. Snapshot in time, that's where I'm at. It's fair pushback, Wyatt. I think that's fair pushback. I'll put it to you that way. I would love to get like some anonymous coaches and ask them what they think the best job in the Big 12 is. Maybe I could pull that off at Big 12 Media Days this year. I don't know if coaches would answer that anonymously. We'll see. It's an interesting idea to plant there. We'll see. It's coming up. I've already applied for my credential for Big 12 Media Days. So we're getting there. We are getting there. Okay. Appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the beginning of your week. And I will talk to you all very soon. Take care.